Hello, lovely people. Spooky season is upon us, so I just wanted to run through some of the books and genres that I am going to hopefully work my way through this autumnal season.
Sophie vlogs.
I don't think I'm the only one who associates certain genres with autumn. Autumn feels like a season that is evocative of quite a lot of things, and I think a lot of booktube taps into similar themes during this time. Definitely one of these is Gothic. You know, this is the spooky season, it is the time to read your Gothic literature. So that's my first starting point. The first book I have that sort of taps into the Gothic genre is Dracul by Daca, Stoker and J.D. Barker. This is a sort of revisiting of Dracula. Essentially, Dacre Stoker is a descendant of Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. And this book is sort of, essentially there's this idea that there were these missing first version of Dracula that was inspired by experiences that Bram Stoker actually had. So this is focusing on Bram Stoker is a character in this book, and the idea is that he's terrified, he doesn't know if he's going to survive the night, so he's writing down these experiences that he had. I read Dracula. It's one of those novels which when I read it I had some critiques of it to do with like pacing and that kind of thing, but I found that as time has passed, it's number one, people's responses to my review of it were really interesting, and that's always lovely when people reply with things that make you view a text slightly differently. But also I've discovered that it's a text that I really enjoy reading people who are writing back to it, interacting with it, that kind of thing. So especially because this is from a descendant of Bram Stoker and it is focused on him, I'm just super interested to see what this is like. I'm hoping it's going to really deliver on a lot of this like chilling Gothic atmosphere. To go back to a very classic Gothic text, I'm also hoping to read Vathek by Beckford. This is a little binder of three Gothic novels. I've already read Frankenstein and The Castle of Otranto. Vathek is one that I know the least amount going in. All I know is from the back, which says, Vathek, an oriental tale by an eccentric millionaire, exotically combines Gothic romanticism with the vivacity of the Arabian Nights and is a narrative tour de force. To be honest with you, it was the one out of this collection that I was least interested in reading, but kind of because of this, I don't know if we're going to lean into some very like Orientalist ideas and that kind of thing, but the completionist within me wants to complete this little bind-up, and I'm interested to read it as sort of like a study of the Gothic genre, which is very much how I viewed reading The Castle of Otranto, which was an interesting novel as well. So very interested to see what it's going to be like and just sort of like expand my like classic Gothic knowledge. On a very similar theme, on my Kindle, I also want to read The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. I'm interested in reading more classic Gothic fiction that is written by women. That's something that excites me. I know that this is more of like a Gothic romance than necessarily Vathek would be. And all I really know is that we follow this orphan who finds herself separated from the man she loves, confined in this castle, and she is having to deal with an unwanted suitor, threats from the guy who owns the castle, and then also some like creeping, haunting occurrences. Again, I just think, you know, spooky season is the time when you read all of these Gothic stories, and I'm very interested to get sort of more of a basis in like classic Gothic texts, because I think probably most of what I've read has been more contemporary. A very short one to round off my like classic Gothic is also, I do have on my Kindle The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. I mainly know this because of the film adaptation, but you know, The Headless Horseman, what better time to read about it than Halloween? But I'm also interested to see how the actual original novel compares to, I think, what has very much entered like cultural consciousness, which is like this classic film adaptation of it. To move slightly more to like contemporary Gothic writing, I'm also hoping to read My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. I set myself this to read last autumn and I just never got to it, but my favourite Daphne du Maurier is Rebecca, as I know a lot of people's are, and that's very much got like a lot of the components that would make up Gothic, but in an interesting way. There's this old building that has such a presence, there is this creeping realization, there is sort of this aspect of like being haunted by the presence of someone who has died. This is the Daphne du Maurier that I know is most similar in sort of tone to that. We follow Philip. He's been very close to his cousin Ambrose. Ambrose suddenly marries this woman called Rachel, and then Ambrose dies very suddenly. And so I know that this is kind of to do with like Philip interacting with Rachel. Like, is Rachel involved in Ambrose's death? Is Ambrose's death everything it seems? Also, he finds himself really drawn to Rachel. So a lot of the themes that I really like about Rebecca sound like they may also be present here. And Daphne du Maurier is an author that when I like her work, I love it. But I have read some of hers that I have not really enjoyed. So I'm hoping that this is going to be one that I will just absolutely love and will sort of remind me of all the things I love about Daphne du Maurier. Another genre that I really love to read in autumn is mystery. Another one that I have on my Kindle is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. This is like widely considered to be like one of the first proper like detective mystery novels. It centers around the theft of this diamond, and I gather that it is also like humorous in places. I read The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins a couple of years ago at autumn, and it was a tale, it was very long, and occasionally I thought it could have been shorter, but on the whole, I did really enjoy it, and I felt like it was really good at building up like suspense and this like gradual unfolding of a mystery. So I'm interested in reading more Wilkie Collins. This is the one that I have heard lots of good things about, so we'll see what that's like. And another mystery is a more classic murder mystery. This is The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. This is a Poirot. I don't know a lot about this because I've read quite a lot of Agatha Christie by now, and I'm at the stage where I know that I can just go in and sort of see what each novel is like. I don't need to know a lot about it going in, but this edition is beautiful, and this one's definitely going to be a priority for me. Finally, just two other genres that I associate with autumn. One of those is fantasy. I really like reading fantasy over autumn, especially a bit of a chunkier fantasy. I'm hoping to read The Broken Kingdoms, which is book 2 of the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemison. I read book 1 of this quite recently. I'll leave a link to my review down below. N.K. Jemison is an author who I love. I know a lot of people are big fans. I'm really enjoying exploring this series, and the end of the first book was very intriguing. I know that this follows different characters. It's kind of this world in which there are gods who sort of exist amongst mortals, but they are like shackled. And I don't want to say a lot more because I think this is a series that is really good to go into without really knowing a lot and just having it unfold. So if I fancy any fantasy, this is where I'm going to go. I might also do The Two Towers by JRR Tolkien. I have been meaning to do a reread of Lord of the Rings. I reread Fellowship of the Ring quite recently, but I haven't picked up the second one yet, but this could be my time. And then the only other book I want to talk about is Gossip from the Forest by Sara Maitland. This is a non-fiction book, and Sara Maitland is sort of like going through forests in seasons, and I believe she's looking at how fairy tales are tied to forests and sort of that kind of evolution. Essentially, fairy tales and forests are two things that I would associate with autumn, so a book that is exploring them both together sounds very intriguing to me. Those are all the books that are on my spooky season TBR. I would love to hear if you have recommendations for books that tap into these themes that I really like, because I'm always looking to squirrel ones away for next year. Also, have you read any of these? Do you have any thoughts on them? I would love to hear them. Please do leave a comment down below if you fancy it. But otherwise, I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope you have a fabulous spooky season, and I will see you next time for something different.